Hello, welcome to Fear Talk number 33. The auspicious 33, I say. Those numbers really seem to be exciting when I thought. I haven't done a Fear Talk for almost 3 months, I've noticed. And it's not that I haven't wanted to, it's just I haven't been able to find somebody who said, yes, I'll do it with you, except our guest today, Dylan Francisco. Thanks for joining us, Dylan.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Let me explain for a little bit before we dive into your background and why we're together here and what excites us in the world today. A background for the Fear Talks 8 years ago was really my research and my dissertation on the culture of fear itself as a dynamic, as a phenomenon, and what I noticed about how people manage that culture of fear. I'm really interested in that dynamic. So, very transdisciplinary that way. Obviously, psychology and spirituality and consciousness will be in our topic today, no doubt. And I know you're interested in those kinds of areas. But in my dissertation, what I was most concerned was not the problem of fear. I mean, that's the easy surface, right? The problem of
Right.
fear, the fear problem, whatever. But it was what's the problem with the problem of fear? And
Yeah.
the problem with the problem of fear, my sort of hypothesis at the end of my dissertation work was we don't know how to talk about the problem of fear very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have all kinds of standard very quick encyclopedic discourse and disciplined ways to understand the problem of fear. And people are very enthusiastic, not always, but will jump in and have all their opinions and views. And I was going, we're never going to learn anything new about this damn topic because we think we know it already.
Yeah.
It's an interesting philosophical dilemma, and it's an educational dilemma, isn't it? When
Absolutely.
people can't or won't really go anywhere new with you. So fear talks was my idea. I want to get people to talk about fear, and we'll like God give them a whole hour with me, And yes, I have an expertise in that area, and they don't necessarily have an expertise in fear. That's not the point. It's that they're willing to actually enter something called a fear talk. It would be like a sex talk. I mean, to
Right.
me, that's the analogy. And we don't have them very often. I don't know of anywhere they're consistent and systematic in our K to 12 education or universities or colleges. What
Agreed.
do you think about that idea of just fear talk itself? What does it bring up for you?
I mean, just that last point of, I mean, there's like, well, there has been, it's probably crested and peaked a little bit of emotional intelligence and that being a part of education, particularly like elementary school and on. But how um, I think there's still uh, an absence of fear included in that. I think it's mostly framed as sort of picking up on cues and navigating emotional terrain, but you know, this enormous presence in the culture, and I think in probably children's lives in unnamed
Yeah.
ways is fear. And so it still seems to be an ongoing area um, of silence, if I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Do you have any question that arises that you would pump to me right off the top or not? We can just carry on.
I'm interested in, in previous conversations we've had of if you think of fear as like a presence, a sort of givenness or given possibility in life that we should learn how to sort of acknowledge and pay attention to while keeping going and being in a relationship with it, or if your position is that fear should be eliminated, that it's ultimately something out of place, if I can put it like that.
What a great intro. Thank you, Dylan. Dylan, who are you and where did you and I meet? And we'll come back to that question because it's a great question. And a
Uh,
little bit about yourself.
yeah, I'm currently I'm sort of in a complicated position. I'm currently co-chair of the Jungian Archetypal Studies program at Pacifica Graduate Institute, and also active chair in the Integrative Therapy Healing Practices program at Pacifica Graduate Institute, a role that I'm moving more into this coming year. I also
Are you a
intersect.
therapist?
I am not a therapist.
Well, how can you be in that position and not be a therapist?
That program is oriented towards healing practices in general. So it's sort of an intersection of modalities and ways, lenses and healing traditions for um, working tangibly with different populations or just an orientation in general of healing. And so there's therapists, there's
Yeah.
somatic workers, there's sort of across the board. So,
Okay. Okay.
and I have a mixed heritage called mestizo, so I'm both European and Mexican ancestry, and my mom, who was Mexican, has for my essentially my whole life been a healer in my local community, uh, practicing sort of very holistic, herbal, energetic exercise. Often goes by the name curanderismo, and that was something that was just in my life. So I've always had that orientation. So this program sort of speaks to that orientation for me.
Yeah.
And then
Do
we
you call do
intersected at,
you
oh,
call
go ahead.
yourself a healer? Or I'm just pushing on labels here. I know that's horrible.
Um, I don't know yet. I feel oriented in that way, but I don't know if I would just call myself that.
Yeah, I don't myself after, 50 years of being in this
Yeah.
business of, healing, and which I'm totally interested in and do work for myself or others, but it's like I've never been able to quite some people just seem to just grab that label and
Yeah.
just like putting on their morning shirt and it's like
Yeah.
I just don't do that. I can't do that. But I think we're both interested in the therapeutic. Is that the
Correct.
main
That's a
tree
good way to put it.
for today?
And I think, yes, absolutely. And I think at least this is the way I say it to students. I feel comfortable locating myself as teacher, but as teacher, I find teaching to be a healing modality, or at least that's how I occupy it.
Nice,
And so
nice.
that's one of the ways I think about it.
I like that. I mean, I've constantly struggled with because I got degrees in education, higher education. I have two degrees in higher education, and was a school teacher, etc. in earlier decades. But I've always been so frustrated with the way education divides itself over here, and then the healing and the therapeutic
Yeah,
art are all over here. And it
agreed.
just never made sense that education should be divided from them, other than you're allowed educational psychologists.
Right, right.
And they're allowed to come into the education program and
Yeah,
help the teachers.
yeah.
We might get all back into that because I like that you started with teacher. That's how I would describe myself as well. So, where did we first meet, just for the audience, and how long ago? Was it a year ago, maybe?
Gosh, maybe
Not
almost a
even.
year. We intersected through a program at Southwestern College in Santa Fe, a program called Visionary Practice and Regenerative Leadership has a mentorship stream as a part of the program.
Doctoral
And
program.
yeah, doctoral program. And that's where we first met of me becoming a mentor there to PhD students in that program and you being present there and us sort of being on the same screen and meeting.
Yeah, really. Very attracted to your presence. You seem someone who we'll talk about today. Perhaps when we talk about, I know you've done a lot of work with Don Juan
Yeah.
slash Carlos Castanedo. I could be a dash. To me, they're sort of
Yes.
one and the same. Um, we'll get to that. People who've read the series on Carlos Castaneda books from the 60s, 70s, and was so popular. You kind of a little bit of an expert in that. No, you may not use that term yourself, but from my point of view, you seem to be somebody who's really systematically studied, read those works over and over. There's not too many people that do that in my circles, and I
Yeah.
don't suspect anywhere. So we'll come back to that too in the therapeutic play and the teacher play, the student teacher, and are they the same fiction, nonfiction, ordinary, banal reality, magical realities? We're
Yeah.
going to come into that. That's why I picked you. And I said, you're an interesting person. You carry a presence to me of that teacher without knowing a lot of your background, but you also carry a presence of someone. And as you told me you're interested in Castaneda, I said, oh, he's interested in magic
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
way. And we'll
Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah.
we'll tweak that out today. Now, you did say something about your background I think is important to our audience when we first chatted, our first coffee chat, which was after one of the staff meetings online, because we've only met online. And it
Yeah.
was that you came from a pretty harsh or even cultic
Yeah.
religious background. And yet you're saying your mom is this healer and so on. Can you tie us in a little bit? And that seemed
Yes,
important as you came to Castaneda's work.
for sure. As sometimes happens, my I think my parents came from vastly different worlds, and I think when they had kids, there was sort of like, well, should we be involved in a community of some sort, religious community? They both, I think, um, had their orientations, but not in a way that, you know, either of, knew what to do with the kids, exactly in terms of ongoing community. So I think my mom's sister at some point invited us to a little Spanish-speaking Pentecostal church in town. And at first, it really was sort of like the Spanish Mexican, a little bit of just congregation, a community in the town that was really warm and rich. And then at some point, uh, a a figure sort of came into the church. There was regular sort of revival meetings, summer camp meetings as a regular part of this. But at a certain point, that turned really radical for this church, and
What kind of year, roughly?
um, I was probably getting into high school at that point.
Okay.
Uh, so 95-ish, 1995-ish, 94-ish. And it really turned apocalyptic, which was like, Jesus is coming soon. We need to prepare as a community for this. And it means all these sort of separations from the world. We're out of here. So stop participating with life because, this evil world is going to go enter persecution or burn up or whatever the case is. And so,
We're going to come back. We're going to come back
okay,
to that.
perfect.
Stop the world.
Yeah.
Now, we've just been reading a bit of Castaneda, and we're going to
Yeah.
talk about that today in one of his books. And this was one of the main teachings of Carlos Castaneda through the Don Juan teachings, a Yaqui shaman
Yeah.
magical figure. So just an interesting stop the world shows up in many different forms and variants. That is all
Yeah.
I'm pointing out. So
Yeah.
hopefully I didn't interrupt you too much. Go ahead.
No, no. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I think my parents still had, like, they didn't buy in. But
Yeah,
as a kid, that was my world. And
right.
so I was like, oh my God, like, how do I do, like, fear? Like, I was like, oh my, like, the world's ending, Jesus is coming. How, like, have I taken care of all my sins? All of this thing. So really, my world really shrunk at that point of. and I really bought in. That I was just sort of that was my frame of reference, and
So it's interesting. You bought in to get it right,
yeah,
which is the underlying message of the form, right? Below
yeah,
the content.
yep,
Get it right. So that's expensive to get it right. Like you get to go to heaven with all of us and the great place
yes,
with the great
yes,
one.
yes,
And you introduced the line with I shrunk at that point.
yeah. Well, because basically to get to heaven meant like you basically, everything in this world, from our own bodies to music to television to dance to like contact of any form, became a vehicle of the devil. And so, especially at that point, I felt that particularly in my body. And that's how it was framed, particularly for boys. Like, if you're gonna get it right, you gotta you gotta hate this devil in your body and suppress it, get rid of it, beat it into submission, or it's gonna keep you out. And along with sort of psychological self-evaluation and scrutiny, imagination was viewed as also like, don't let your mind think any other thoughts than the thoughts that we tell you you can think. So that is where things I started suffocating, um, and didn't know how to get it right. There was like, for some reason, and I've always found struggled with a way to say this, but the only way I could say it is something in me would not participate and in the fitting in the getting it right. And that sort of antagonism really started taking a toll on me. The harder I struggled to get it right, the worse I felt I was doing it, getting it right. And that strain really started to undo me. Um, and by the time of, several years into this, I was at a breaking point in that opposition of I couldn't hate myself enough and revile my body enough to get it to obey, if I can say that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for you, man. It's like that's heavy. That's heavy. That this is, whatever we want to call it, but it's cultish and culture is cultish. So it's not
Yeah,
just cult doesn't
yeah,
just exist in weird groups. It exists everywhere in culture.
yeah.
And cultures, right? What they do to us. But from that really troublesome place that you just named, you go to theological school.
Yes. And this was, we can circle about around to how Castaneda talks about this, but it was sort of like, well, it was another effort to try harder, but and also a way to
Right?
say, maybe I can sort of move around the furniture in Christianity and figure it out in that framework. I'll just try something else.
Getting a broader education though,
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Which you
It
did, yeah.
didn't work.
Oh, okay.
I still felt that uh, the wall shrinking. There was still even like me trying to sort of placate the getting it right by saying, well, I'll try this way or this way, maybe this denomination or this theological orientation. Still, there was something that just didn't mesh. And
Now you were going to become a minister.
yeah,
Basically.
yeah. And part of that community was sort of one of the allures or seductions of it was I'm really special in this community. I have a really special role to, so that made my efforts to be like, oh man, I'm supposed to be this voice and figure, and I'm awful.
Right, right. Well said. Yeah, well said.
That really came to a breaking point while in seminary,
Yeah.
um, where I just
Did you go to counselors in the seminary?
no. I mean, like ministers that would say,
Yeah,
well, it's because, I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you haven't dealt with your
Yeah,
sinfulness well enough.
yeah,
So
got
it
it.
just sort of
Yeah.
re-inscribed the effort.
Don't want to go there too much. And you didn't, so you rebelled a bit, right? So then you said you had this epiphany reading Carlos Castaneda, and how did you get onto that just very briefly?
Well, the Castaneda came different. I'll sort of where he tied
Okay.
into this. I really, at that point, I had no outside reference. I just had this real, I think, coming to terms with I'm I'm gonna lose it. Like in I'm coming loose,
Okay.
and um, at that point, I really felt like I had a decision to make of um, if I just keep fighting this same way, trying harder is not doing it. Um, I'm gonna wake up in a psychiatric
Yeah.
facility, or like someone's gonna find me and I'm not gonna come to. Um, and so this had ultimately been related to a fear. Like, what is this thing that won't let me go, and how do I beat it? And ultimately, in a very paradoxical way, I was like, this thing is stronger than the God I'm supposed to be obedient to.
Mhm.
Maybe, maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe this image of what I'm supposed to be getting right. Maybe this other thing is where the sacred is. Like there's something interfering with my ability to obey this. Maybe I have it wrong. Maybe this other thing is trying to save me. Um, And I had a moment of saying, like, the only frame of reference I have is this is the devil. Maybe it's
Sure.
not.
Sure. Yeah,
Maybe
which
it's
is a
life.
pretty strong language.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
so
very
it's
psychological.
no, and that it was all theological. It was all
Right.
theological.
Theological.
But I just said, I'm not going to win this. How about I trust this other thing?
Okay.
And
Huge.
that was the transformative moment for me
Huge. It's
of
huge.
life opening up out of that box. And I could breathe again. It was like something just shattered of like, and then there was almost an immediate affirmation.
Okay.
Yeah, you can trust this thing. It's been
Okay.
trying
Wow.
your whole life to get you out of there.
And this is not coming from peers or colleagues or
Oh,
counselors or readings. It's like intuitive.
yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Because at this point, I was intimate with this force. It
Yeah.
was my daily like antagonist.
Right.
So
Right.
I was almost in conversation with this.
True.
I was like, have me. I give up.
This is
And
the
then I was
stuff of
like,
great drama.
boom.
This is the
Yeah,
stuff of great drama, isn't it? It's the forces we could call it good and evil,
yeah,
but we could call it love and fear.
yeah. And I gave up, and that saved my life.
So love is not enough without fear. Is that a pretty big metaphysical principle of possibility that you intuitively see? You weren't reading that necessarily. You probably
No.
were reading some of that through the theology a bit. It's certainly in Christian
Yeah,
theology. It's in
yeah,
many traditions and
yeah,
my study of those traditions. Love and fear are seen as the great meta emotions,
yeah,
two archetypal
yeah,
emotions. We were talking about emotional intelligence. How do you distinguish that's love based? How do you
yeah,
distinguish that's fear based? So
yeah,
we'll come back in that as we sit and explore further into Castaneda and your question about how do I understand fear after all these years. Is there anything
yeah.
you want to add to this little bit? And then I want you to pull your quote out or one of them.
Um, no, yeah, I just think that's it became a moment that has sort of now in my bones of this thing I was afraid of most. There was life in it.
Right.
I can be wrong about what I'm afraid of. Like and that just sort of because in that world I had absolute certainty that this was the way the world was.
Yeah, yeah.
and that shattered that. I was absolutely thought I was absolutely right, and I was completely wrong. And that
Right. Right.
breaking of that mold saved my life.
So
Yeah.
I want to tweak this a bit. It's so fascinating. So much to the right to be right, which is what I was
Yeah.
pointing out. That's the subtext. Get
Yeah.
it right. And so it drives, but you can feel it's like this is fear
Yes.
based.
Yes.
Get it right in fear. And then, of course, you got be a good God fearing man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is all so beautifully tied. But what was fascinating to me, just phenomenologically, I'm reflecting here, is when you push so far to get it right, it ain't working. That you were pretty enough convinced, you were seeing it, feeling it somatically.
Yeah.
Then you went, maybe there's something in the wrong
Yeah.
from their perspective, the
Yes.
cult, sure.
Yeah.
I'm willing to appropriate some or all or something
Yeah.
because the full 100% deal, it's not holistic. I mean, we're
Yeah.
just using other language. You didn't
Correct.
use that back then. But here's what's really interesting to me. You said, well, maybe I should at least even explore what getting
Yeah.
it wrong would be
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
without always the drive to get it right because it was such a relief to you, you said, like
Oh, I mean, it was like
physically
it was in my cells. I felt my cells go like
so interesting. Dylan, that is an amazing, interesting thing. And so what then I'm just here's my tweak a little bit on what you said is that when you go to the appropriation or the admission to opening to the wrong so-called,
yeah,
at the same time, it's yes, I'm going to the wrong now. It could be right.
right, right.
See, you're not giving up on the right. And
No,
this is what I was trying to get to in my little reflection back. It was really dialectical
yes,
plus a very brilliant methodological way of knowing to
yeah,
be dialectical instead of totally dualistic, right?
yeah,
They're
that's right.
not, but I'm just saying, I don't think you were giving up on the right. Like your body was saying, there's a better way. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
means there is a righter way, but it's
yeah,
not the right of the absolute.
yeah. That's correct. And then I really did immediately sort of loop into this. Well, be careful with your even in the fact that this is a bigger space I've opened up to and I feel it and it resonates. Be careful with new rights.
Right.
Uh, yes,
You
yeah,
can make that wrong right in a big way.
yeah,
Oh yeah, this is the evangelical play, isn't it? Like
yeah,
evangelical over there, evangelical over there, revolution over here. Oh, let's go the opposite. Now it's another revolution. Doing
yes,
the
yeah,
same damn thing.
correct,
It's still fear-based.
yes, correct.
So did you enter in that dark chamber we call it? Were you aware you were entering maybe a territory more where fear is the ruler instead of love the ruler, or was there nuance, or did you think of that language back then?
No,
Yeah.
it
You have those
was
metaphors, you didn't have those translations.
no, at that point it was like purity and contamination, really. Like, and that's why, the getting it
Oh,
right was, am I
wow.
pure enough?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
everything else is contaminating. And
Yeah.
can I get all the germs off of me from life?
Yeah. The philosophy of absolutism is another language. You're correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And a psychology of absolutes.
For sure.
And we're going to get into the really fine-tuned nuancing as we get into Castaneda and his story, that fascinating story about the friend and the child, and how do you handle that, and how did Don Juan come up with a very interesting intervention.
Yeah.
So, and we'll come back to the love and fear too, and my work in fear. Do you have a quote that you want to you brought? I asked you to bring a couple.
Yeah,
It fits right for now, or do you think?
well, I have less quotes than really like ideas from the work that I there it's not sort of specific text, but there's sort of orienting metaphors or metaphor might be the wrong word, but these sort of core areas that are named certain ways that I've found really valuable in navigating my life. And I could just bring up one related to what we're talking about now, which is the contrast between the tonal and the nagual. And the tonal is like the world that we know. It's the thing with the description, and the nagual is the other side of that, that is the infinite spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I one of the reasons that sort of distinction has lived well with me is because for me, that threshold is often where fear lives between the life I can describe that feels ordered, the chairs are arranged in a way that feels familiar, and this other side of life that is, I think, often positioned as dangerous, as intrusive because it messes with the normal, with
So
the familiar.
yeah, so that's why
Um,
familiar, unfamiliar,
yeah,
normal, abnormal,
yeah,
and order and chaos.
yeah. And even it's not even it's a different order, so it's not even chaos, but it can be named as such as a way to say don't go there.
Right.
And I that just sort of holds that early experience of the the Nagual was essentially the dangerous, the demonic,
Mm.
and yet that's where infinity lives. And
Right.
so anyone who like has habituated to the tonal in a certain way, whatever that right description is, when that starts to get troubled, I think that's when fear shows up and says, "Don't go across that boundary.
Well, interesting. Okay.
It's dangerous over there."
So you've
But
got
that's
you've
where
got
the rest of life is, essentially.
yeah, so it's interesting. You've got fear showing up in the contentious zone or the
Yeah,
transitional zone between, let's just call it, we could call it small reality and big
yeah,
capital R
yeah,
reality, is another way
yeah.
of
That's right.
just common language. But that's interesting to me. Well, I haven't thought so much about that, so I might come back to that. Thanks. So,
Perfect.
what's the quote or the phrasing that you would like to just share per se? How would you encourage people to maybe understand that, or what did you read
Well,
that
the
got you
way
onto
that
that?
the, the way that Don Juan describes that is
Okay.
essentially like the tonal is the force of the familiar, but it's false to the extent that it's not the big R. It's not the whole of it. And we feel that like our lives protest that smallness, but it's the small safe place to live. Um, and he, it's basically he's basically teaching this tonal zone of the familiar little r is too small for life. And in that way, it's deceptive. And so learning how to pay attention to that tension in our bodies and our minds and our lives to say, what is wrong with the reality that I can name and describe? Something isn't enough. But I think culturally, that's where that wall of fear is built to say, but this is how we get you to buy in. This and we'll treat your symptoms with all sorts of things to help you numb your ability to stay with the little r.
And we'll call you normal.
Yeah, yes, yes,
That's a nice carrot.
yes.
Oh, I'm not abnormal? That's a good
Correct.
carrot, right?
Correct.
So in my work, theorizing and metaphysicizing and all kinds of different ways of thinking about and the experience of fear, and I have to immediately say, well, you could say there's a small fear, capital small F, I mean, capital F and a small f, fear. Sometimes I'll play with that. But structurally, and as a researcher, I marked a fear with quote marks. Let's forget the capitals for a second. I used a scare mark, single scare mark on the word fear. And I did that very early back in early 90s because I was already, from what I'm reading and sensing, I wanted a way to go into fear, this other,
Yeah.
perhaps where the infinity is, but also a real possibility of a lot of shadow pathology
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the way to that infinity. It's, in other words, warning.
Yeah.
You cross this barrier line between the small r and the capital R. It's not just a gift. It's not
Correct.
just a savior.
Yes.
So, so I think you're articulating that. I think that I see that in Castaneda's teaching and
Yes.
Don Juan's
Absolutely.
teaching. But I also was doing that structurally as a researcher to have a methodology of deconstruction reconstruction.
Right.
Put the scare marks on. Other theorists have done this in deconstructionist thought, so that you mark a certain word or vocabulary, something that's so ordinary, normal,
Yeah.
habitual, that you think I already know everything I need to know about it.
Yeah.
Well, that if you don't have the scare marks on, that's what's likely going to happen, because
Correct.
we all write fear in English anyway, FEAR.
Yeah.
You don't need any scare marks. So it's interesting. In a way, I was, and I'm using scare marks also as a double metaphor of play there. I'm scaring fear
Love it.
itself.
Yes.
The
I love
fear that is normal itself. It's
that.
already being scared, scarred.
Yes.
You can play with all these things. I was saying, don't always expect that it is what you think it is. That's
Yeah.
the simplest languaging. I was trying to use a code for that. So you'll see in my writing, it's very annoying to people to have to read it. Oh, now you're talking about this. What does that mean again? And why can't we just talk about fear the way it is?
Yeah.
And I'm going, I just don't think there is a way it is. And I
Yeah.
think that's our problem, the fear problem.
I love that. It's making me think of um something I've used in different ways, but Jean Piaget in his process of learning, he has assimilation and accommodation. It says assimilation is we just subsume the new information into the old information. And but accommodation means that framework isn't big enough to hold the meaning that needs to be learned. So the frame has to be opened up. And it feels like to me, like putting scare quotes around fear is like, don't assimilate this
Too
word to what
easily,
you already know.
too easily.
Yeah, yeah.
May have to use it.
Yes. But
Nice.
don't assume it means what you've already associated it with. Yeah, that's really good. So, can we circle back to
Yeah,
my initial question of
yeah.
like
Let's go for it.
how you if fear is eliminatable or if it's a part of sort of the fabric of little or big R and we learn how to live well with it, or if it's just fundamentally a an illusion that can be dispelled ultimately.
Which you see in a lot of literatures.
Yeah, yeah,
You've seen it, obviously,
yeah,
right? In
yeah,
reading. You find it even in a lot of the Eastern traditions as well.
yeah,
The transcendental,
yeah,
transcendent traditions generally would basically say fear is an illusion.
yeah,
Fear is your ego, and your true soul to your higher absolute is not fear-based, right? It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
so you have to transcend your ego. You have
right,
to transcend the regular world of the ego, which supports your ego, which is the small r
yeah,
world, and so on. So yeah, I had to deal with all those. I mean, you just can imagine me looking for
yes,
the last 30 years at everything I can kind of read on fear across traditions, East,
yeah,
West,
yeah,
historical. anthropological, sociological, psychological. It's a nightmare of exploration. I've got so much data. I've never been able to actually analyze it. I have so many files.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I did play with that. And here's maybe one lead to something I think you, in a sense, have pre-echoed here. I came to it's not I can never say I came to one place. Like,
Yeah.
you can say I came to here, but I also came to here.
Yeah.
And I actually don't quite know how to even put those two together yet, like theoretically or philosophically. So a lot of what I'm doing is a lot of revealing. It's kind of the artist in me. I'm not so much always trying to get that final
Yeah.
solution like maybe a philosopher is trying to do.
Yeah.
Um, I have that drive too, but I have this artist that's always saying, "Well, that's okay. Just leave that there for now."
Yeah.
It showed up, and you got a location here. Oh, well, you don't have a systematic theory because you don't know how to actually. Yeah, I don't, but
Yeah.
I have quite a systematic theory. And so one of the places that came in this play of is I said we to get off the small r imperative to always construct fear, make meaning of it, have a definition for it within the small r
Yeah.
context or matrix.
Yeah.
To get off that track a little bit, get some stepping out. I wasn't going for the total transcendent. See, I'm
Yeah.
only going for, well, let's get a step out, maybe step in, be able to go back and forth. So the dialectical methodology.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a solution for me. So I worked with the dialectical methodology, still do. And the question shifted from the common one of the small r reality is what is fear?
Yeah.
You just pick up literally 99.9% of books on the topic fear. They'll always start with what is fear?
Yeah.
And I went, that's a problem. So, and then you go, well, if you can't define it, then you can't talk about it. And I'm going, you can talk about it because you know something about it.
Right. Right.
That's good enough grounds. That's a phenomenological ground. Okay, we may not ever agree on the definition. We may not, like
Right.
precisely, and especially the more complex specialists you get, they're even less likely to agree. In fact, they keep creating more complexities in the
Yeah.
defining. And I've documented all that. And I said, you enter a nightmare of complexities. Not that that's bad, it's actually interesting, but
Yeah.
don't expect to get a definition of fear out of it. Well, I'll just go to the damn dictionary. And yeah, the dictionary will do that for you.
Yeah.
And so will a medical textbook, an
Yes.
encyclopedia of. So we've got all these interesting plays, and I'm just sort of seeing them as dramas at this point. Like everybody's out to get the locked in definition. But it's totally confusing the more you study it. So
Right.
I was experiencing that as a researcher and a person and realizing, but I can still talk about fear because there's enough, let's just call it this inner knowing, sensing as a human, fear exists. Now, so then I said, well, let's get off the definitional thing. That's probably an obsession.
Yeah.
Intuitively, and this is hypothesis, and it's probably a fear-based way to know fear.
That's really good.
There's your epistemological move, right?
Yeah.
So I'm making a critical epistemological hypothetical, and then I'm going to try to show that that's a reasonable argument to make. And I've made that several places. So once you get past a little bit of that questioning and doubt, right? Skepticism, healthy skepticism, then what came and popped out really is, oh, what's actually probably a better question, or at least it's going to produce some more interesting. And I often will say, I want some fresh talk
Yeah.
about fear. I want some fresh writing. Like, even if it's way off, quote, way off, just show me you can actually do a fresh talking
Yeah.
about fear. And I'll
Yeah.
sometimes, even with guests, I'll say, can you say something about fear that you've never heard about before? Interesting question, isn't it? Ask a
Yes.
child. Ask a child. They'll give you fresh.
That's good.
So that's a fun play. And so way more research could be done about what's the child's native response and definition of fear without, especially before they get too old and, five,
Yeah.
six, they start conforming so much. And seven, they're pretty much on the way to gone.
Yeah.
Small reality. But it's like, so here's the question that came to me is the alternative. Where is fear located? Back to your point, wasn't it? Like you just intuitively came up. It's sort of like in between, it's the encounter in between the conflicting.
Yeah.
And that's again the beauty of dialecticism. Why is dialectic movement of opposites, so called, so interesting? Small r, big R, or love and fear is just concepts. What's so interesting is the tension as those opposites come and need to negotiate can bring up a lot of fear. So, again, without defining fear, I'm just saying that is probably, and I said, where is it located is much more interesting inquiry for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It does, I think, evoke it evokes imagination and location,
Yeah.
which is
Spatial,
not definition. Yes, spatial.
well,
I love that.
spatiality, right? And those kind of things. So again, we don't have time today to go into and me drag out and try to arc all that out. It would take a long time for me to arc some of the approaches or what I've even come up with. Because I also have a really logical, rational part of me that is a scientific kind of guy. And I think there are things called fear management systems,
Yeah. Yeah.
just like a meme or just like a gene and its coding and its system code. So I think
Yeah.
in systems as well. So I can do that playful artistic stuff, but then my scientist comes out and says, yeah, you can nail this down. Like there are systems of defense intelligence.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about emotional intelligence, social emotional intelligence, which is what really took off in the school systems and education, which is what I care about as
Yes.
a parent. I care about that as a, I know you have children. So
Yep.
it's like we care about that. And you can see the society's caring a lot about it because they're feeling there's not a very good hold there. Like we're raising kids who are not holding a lot of social emotional wealth and goodness, and
Yep.
they're losing it and they're slipping in the mental health problems, right? So, well, never mind what's happening to adults, but like right down to children, we know this is a serious, serious rise of what's going on. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think that's kind of interconvertible, although there are some people who would disagree with me and say, wow, you guys are just exaggerating. You're a bunch of leftists. You're always thinking in the negative, cynical, and the whole movement away from people now saying, well, this is the best time in history. Humans have never had it so good, and so on. And I go, well, that may be true, but have you ever measured, you're making that commitment to maybe this is a good time in history. And yeah, I'm not saying it isn't. There's some progress that's useful, but
Right.
are you measuring emotional and social intelligence
Yeah.
compared to?
No, and I mean it's for me it reflects that there is a there is some breakdown in our if we just say I'll just say United States. There's some breakdown in the shared definition of like the orienting story of life is not uh it's being diversified in a way that I think the there's no like normative in as compelling a way as it used to may have been. These are the values that will get you through life and you'll be successful if you buy into them and participate in life in this way. There's breakdowns in that I think shows up in education, like the stories that children are told. There's a lack of coherence, or they're hearing something else at home versus what they heard at school. When I think that division wasn't as sharp 50 years ago, and so there isn't a new container of normative values that a teacher in a school can take for granted. I'm giving you the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, in other words, complex systems, right? And
Yeah.
complex communication systems, complex code systems, complex value systems,
Yes.
and then with all the intermigration, cross migration of nations and peoples, more and more and more and more, it will not stop. We will be mixed, mixed,
Yeah.
mixed. So you're someone of mixed heritage yourself. I'm sure you're working on those intersections of your
Yes.
mix, cultural,
Absolutely.
historical, ethnic, um, and so on as you come to probably the same time. Are you still searching for still some universals in the psycho-spiritual domain that can be helpful?
Yeah. I mean, I think I feel located pretty well in of an animistic communicative cosmos, and a relational cosmos, I think is, that, and I think one of the reason that I feel located there is because it allows me to stay in dialogue. It allows me to be in receptivity to streams of communication in life that I may not have expected, that I've defined. Like if I sort of position myself as available and that the world is capable of communicating in all sorts of ways, then I feel in relational exchange rather than in definition, if I could put it like that.
Yeah, and it sounds like in a way you're leaning toward a multiverse rather than a universe,
Yeah. Yes.
right? So that kind of softens the universal
Yes.
trajectory of Western Enlightenment, right? Toward rational, reasonable,
Yeah.
universal histories and arcs of reality, capital R even.
Yeah.
Um, the multiverse is another way to still circulate around core in a way of
Yeah.
cohesion,
Yes.
integrity. We could use different phrasings. This is very complex, of course, I understand, but there is a big difference, I think, between multiverse and universe. We don't need to go into it today, but just to raise it, unless you
Yeah.
want to do something.
No, yeah, I think it's a one of the ways is for me to uh related to my background, like to live in the in-between, um um that I'm not in that dialectic um positioning, myself on one side of that dialogue, that I if I can stay in the middle, then I can be in communication with whatever shows up in the way it wants to show up. And I haven't, in an ongoing way, redrawn the redrawn dichotomies or separations between the known and the unknown. If I can sort of live in the in between of those things, then I can navigate life as, all the things of paying the bills and all the things where my feet are on the ground, and I don't have to mistake that for everything that is.
Everything that is, yeah, nice, yeah. And your identity getting attached to
Yes.
it, right?
Correct.
Right. Maybe my
Correct.
salary is attached to it, but my
Right.
identity.
Exactly.
I want a little attachment, not cash the check at the bank.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's a space I teach from as well, of like, I don't want you like somehow be able to be here and be available to to what else is here that you don't yet know about, so to speak.
Can you say that all over again? It's just a bit confusing.
I to have students,
So you're talking undergrad, grad?
grad,
Yeah.
grad.
Yeah. Fairly sophisticated and so on.
Yes, the ability to sort of not discount. You got to go home and turn on the lights and or whatever the case is, and put the food in the oven and go to the grocery store, whatever the like. That's life too, and also like be available for disruption of what you take normal to be. And that if you're in that space, then they aren't in battle. They're in conversation. So this doesn't have to show up as like, I have to break down a wall to get to you. That door's already open.
Okay. I would say they're in battle, but you don't have to have a wall.
There you go. Perfect.
Just a little tweak on it. And that will become really interesting when we get into talking about enemy and enemy making, right?
Yeah.
Um, we won't probably fully get into that today, but maybe another conversation. I agree with you that it's a little bit, I'm just going to twist off it. It's like I had to deal with this too. You know, everybody's talking boundaries, you need boundaries, you need boundaries. And I go, well, that's good, but do you know the difference between a boundary and a wall?
Yeah. That's perfect.
Because arguably a wall is fear-based.
Yes.
Israel, the
Yeah.
wall, and China, the wall. I mean, we have this historically, those are huge architectures of fear.
Yeah.
Bottom line, that's with
The
your
United States, we got it. We need a wall.
a
We just
wall.
need
You're
like,
starting. Yep, you're on it. You're joining history, even in
yeah.
the new world.
I often use a cellular metaphor of like a membrane
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that provides distinction, cohesion that is permeable. And as soon as that permeability is gone, the cell's going to die because it can't exchange with it can't receive or give necessary things. Yeah.
Where is fear located? I'll throw out a thought and maybe you can have one. Where's fear located? It's just coming to me listening to you, and I'm going, fear's located in defense intelligence
Yeah.
on the planet,
Yeah.
across every being.
Yeah.
Because every being to be called a being needs the integrity of a defense to another being.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can at least have some differentiation.
Yeah.
Even an atom,
Yeah.
they have integrity. And so, this idea of healthy defense, pathological or just call it
Right.
unhealthy defense.
Yeah.
Every therapist with a client, you're coming in and you're going to work with them. They have problems and you have all this knowledge to help them. It's like Don Juan with Carlos
Yeah.
Castaneda in a way is Carlos is really the client that
Yeah.
he's like the patient for
Yes,
Don
that's right.
Juan who's going to do some interventions.
Yes.
And I love watching it from as if a therapist and a client as well as a student teacher. But it's that idea that well, what are you here for? Like, what are we here for? Well, every therapy, bottom line, is basically dealing with defenses.
Yeah. I love that.
I mean, that's the bottom line. That doesn't
Yes.
mean it's everything,
Yeah.
but it's pretty foundational. Why did I go and study fear? I knew intuitively it's the foundation.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, Mike, yeah, no, love is the foundation. I don't think
No.
it is.
Yeah.
I think it's just the problem that you are in a cult, religion slash, moving toward a foundation that was supposed to be love.
Yes.
And
It's
it
absolutely
didn't know how
right.
to handle fear other than let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And that would be the final solution to the
Yep.
elimination of fear.
Yeah.
So I don't buy that as a methodological or metaphysically. I don't think there's the evidence that it is, and I don't think there's the evidence it works.
Yeah.
So that would be a longer arc, but
Agreed.
that's another answer to what we
Perfect.
started on. And I want to then just throw up this diagram as we were talking about the dialectic movement,
Yeah.
right? Of a movement. If I could operate, and I think this is what you're trying to do with your students, and I would tried to do the same. I actually use this in our course outline for our dissertation proposal course,
Right.
is this infinity symbol in a movement dynamic where you basically got something can be at this end of extreme,
Yeah.
but there's always going to be something that pulls it back and then it can go to the other extreme. But it's always coming back. What's the pull? The pull is there's something here that keeps pulling it like a gravity
Yeah.
to integrity.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to get too mystical about that. You can just say, well, that is a pattern. You can explore out there, but you always come back to the center. You can
Yeah.
explore out there, and you can come there. Well, and those are pretty far apart. Yep, they are. They don't look like they're on the same playing
Correct.
field, but the dialectic shows everything is on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Now, you
Yeah.
talked about the middle. The middle is a zone,
Yeah.
right? It's not so stable. It's got a lot of play in it.
Yeah.
And it's got play where you step outside, you fall outside, you're pulled outside, you're sucked outside sometimes. And then sometimes you're sucked at this end and you don't even remember there's another end.
Yeah.
Never mind the middle.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of an idea of a healthy dialectical idea, and it's really the zone. So my argument is that if you do get somewhat hanging out in a fairly stable zone in your life, whatever, it's working pretty good, is to cross and go over onto that side or this side. They're both shadows.
Right.
And I like transpersonal theory because it says not only is there a pre-personal shadow, there's a transpersonal shadow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you can kind of look developmentally a little bit at this too. Oh, kind of more pre-personal shadow on this side is more transpersonal shadow. And the fear barrier, that's those lines.
Yeah.
So I locate fear with click marks because it's very dangerous. The click marks are scare marks to say, caution.
Yeah.
You're not dealing with ordinary fear here. You're dealing with a very deep pattern of defense that may be and probably is twisted
Yeah.
and distorted.
No, that's really good.
And your growth, your awareness, your education, everything you're doing to be a person of knowledge, use Castaneda's term, the knowledge of
Yeah.
man of knowledge, is that understanding of the fear barriers
Yeah.
and how to negotiate them and having a huge vocabulary to play with
That's
at
yeah.
those moments of thresholds.
Yeah.
So that would be just another quick way to relocate. Where is fear located? It's located in the fear barriers as
Yeah.
well, like the defense systems, right? The walls, and when are they healthy boundaries and when are they walls, and to know the difference. So,
Yeah.
well, come on, Dylan, can't you just be positive? Won't it all work out if we just were more positivity? I'm listening to Stevie Wonder at the concert he played at with the Obama's new Obama Center opening in Chicago, right? Big thing. And Stevie Wonder's one of the musicians playing, and he gives a little speech after he talked, right? He's got the audience, he's got the world, a lot of world watching, and he says, it's fear and faith. That's what it all comes down to. And then, basically he's saying is we got to move away from fear to
Right.
faith.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh, you could nuance that so much differently, so much more effectively. That would be a real learning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point as we're closing today is we're really suffering from not a very good fear education. Emotional intelligence took off, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Bless Daniel Goleman and the crew and some people before him. He made it famous, but psychologists,
Yeah.
they're not philosophers, and they're not transdisciplinary.
No.
So they're psychologists. Okay, scientists basically. And they were
Yeah.
very much into the science, the neurobiology of, and so on. But it tells me where they flaw immediately is here's the list of emotions that are basically what we have to learn to
Yeah.
manage better.
Yeah.
And guess what? Fear shows up in the list, eight or nine substantially emotions
Yeah.
is one of just all the rest.
Yeah.
And for me as a fearologist, I just like, no.
Yeah.
Something is fundamentally really wrong. You've not tuned into the phenomenological reality of humanity, and
Yeah.
not just humanity, all defense intelligence.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
operates on fear as its foundation before you can get to love and freedom.
Correct. Correct.
Not that they're all separate and distinct, but I have basically a meta motivational chart that's hierarchical. You need that foundation. Healthy defense, then you can finally reproduce because you got enough integrity.
Yeah.
Once you reproduce in that love sphere, then you can go for freedom.
Yeah. No, that's really good.
Meta
Yeah.
motivations, but who teaches that?
Yeah. No, it again, I always like ground this material in the body, at least for me, that works well. Like
Okay.
the difference between an immune system and an autoimmune disorder of I have a system in place for defending the integrity of like my my body responds to things that will cause it harm. I have a defense system,
Yeah, instinctual.
and yes, and it's and that's healthy, and it can also turn destructive.
The
Um,
autoimmune.
yeah,
The
yeah,
autoimmune goes crazy on itself.
yeah. And then it's attacking something healthy that's perceived as harm. And I mean,
Yes.
that's what that your the
Yes.
defense system and the difference between like having the complexity and nuance to know the difference between what happens with that defense system and how it facilitates these other movements or restricts them, I think is a really, or prohibits them, is
Yeah.
really valuable.
So another place I located, and just picking off from you, is I located fear in fear management systems.
Yeah, yeah,
I refuse to talk about fear outside of management systems.
yeah, yeah,
I just refuse. It to me, it's then you're already going down a walled off sense of truth that's
right.
that's going to just lead you into a lot of complexity, a lot of interesting things, maybe even some things that work
Yeah,
pragmatically, work, but I think you're already way too far off reality for me. So I have some bottom lines, like I have some ontological bottom lines, and it comes from thinking and knowing. I was raised in science of ecology and systems,
yeah,
and I pretty much am not going to drop that just because it's not cool anymore.
yeah,
And it's not post-structuralist, and it's not, no, there are some soft and hard structures that
yeah,
still need to be respected. And I think I hear some with you have a lot of soft and porosity, right? A porousness to how you encounter these categories or descriptions and so on of realities. But I also hear you do have that system sensibility. But I do hear more than me, you have grounded a lot of it in your somatic
yeah,
experience. And that's not so much the case for me. I'm much more heady on where I've taken off with things. So it's a fun compliment to talk back and forth. Is there
that,
anything that you just got out of this conversation? And maybe as we're closing, I do want to say I think we need to do another video
yeah.
on this.
We do,
And
we
so
do.
I'm going to introduce this book and the
Perfect,
chapter, first chapter. So
perfect.
when we do another talk, maybe even some viewers will read the introduction to that book by
Good.
Carlos Castaneda, 1972 original. And it's a fascinating chapter. Did you find it? You read it? I
Yeah,
I just there's so much depth in that first chapter to pull off.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
even going to read anymore.
yeah. No, I
It's
think this
about
is,
fear.
yeah, yeah. No, let's use that as a touch point for another conversation for sure. There's so much in there. No, but I love this conversation. I love how you've placed fear rather than defined it, and that's really and fear management system and integrity like that gives what you've already noted more language that I think gives and language opens up perception as well
Does
of
does
oh, I can see this differently, I can hold this differently.
That's right.
But I love the context of systems and ecological, because to me that brings it back to some of those hard edges of like actually things break down in real ways
We do.
with actual things when
Even
something's
nature.
toxic. Yes, when something's toxic or something is out of balance, it means things happen in certain ways that something is it's not just we're just talking in abstractions. There
And
is
it's
something
not
between.
just your mind making it up
Correct.
that it's falling apart.
Correct. Correct.
So you and I obviously are not not
Correct.
subjectivists.
Correct.
We're
Yeah.
inter
Yes.
subjects. And
Yes.
yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
good to clarify. That's a very important point.
Yeah. And I think that that's sometimes where where academia flies off to is like, oh, actually, like the way this has to be lived in real places and time, like it means something. Like structural and integrity means something to a plant, an animal, to a biosystem, to a body. It's not just an intangible something.
There's your mestizo for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
I mean, that's the indigenous perspective
Yep.
worldview, isn't it? In a
Yep.
nutshell.
Absolutely.
Don't go thinking
Can't
you're
get
just
away from,
gonna think into your thinking and you're gonna go off and get reality right.
Yep.
It'll be interesting and you may
Yep.
get some things right,
Yep.
but you better be, and again, you better be checking back
Yep.
in the loop.
That's right. That's right.
Check what the rest of us have to say. Like, did you ask the frogs what they think about your
Correct.
theory?
100%. Well, I love that.
I love it too. I have
Love
an
it.
animistic bent too. So, oh, thanks for this today. It was a pleasure.
Same.
We'll do it
Love
again,
this.
mate.
Love this. I appreciate it.
All the best.
All right. Take care.